I'm George, and I was diagnosed with young onset dementia, Alzheimer's and vascular, in 2014 when I was aged 62. And ever since then I've been working, amongst other people, with Karen and the Shrewsbury Hospital Trust to improve the awareness of staff of dementia and its effects upon people. So, my diagnosis came a while after I'd also been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which of course is the precursor to full dementia. And at work I'd been having increasing problems organising my work, dealing with the constant incoming requests or demands upon my time, working in a busy school as a bursar, and I was unable to do things like remember who said what at which meeting when, so I had to start taking notes of everything, and things just got very difficult. So anyway, I got this diagnosis, and since then I've given a number of talks, both locally and nationally, to conferences. I've written stuff. I write a blog about living with dementia. I hope you might find it useful. If you find it, it's on WordPress at George_Rook, or is it? No, George Rook. Just Google for George Rook online and you'll find the blog. So let's see. Let's talk about the disease that causes dementia. Brain disease. All sorts of different labels for the brain disease, or diseases. In my case, vascular and Alzheimer's. But ultimately, this brain disease that causes the symptoms that we call dementia starts probably 20 years in your head, body, before you show the symptoms. Before the symptoms become, or the effects become noticeable enough to warrant you thinking, something's not right here. So then you go along to a GP, or someone suggests you go along to a GP to assess your memory. For many people, they're obviously assessed when they're getting on 75, 80 plus. That's a sort of, there isn't a normal age for dementia, but most people who get dementia, it will be in their 70s and 80s. Some of us develop it younger, don't know why, but we do. There are people I know in their 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s who have dementia of one sort or another. All of us have different symptoms, and we're all at different stages, because some of the brain disease develops very quickly, some very slowly. Some people deteriorate very quickly after their diagnosis, and within 2 years they may be unable to look after themselves. Some people like me, 6 years later, yes, I am noticeably worse at doing some things, but I'm still able to function pretty much normally. So the sort of symptoms that we get, and everybody is different. Some people have one, not the other. Some people have them in different balances. Effects on memory, so short-term memory initially. Sometimes it's complete inability to lodge a memory in your brain, so that you can't remember what you did 10 seconds ago. You just cannot remember anything. Sometimes it's, and for most people it's far milder, at least initially. So you may be unable to remember what you did last week, but you can remember what you did yesterday. Or you may, no, I don't know. Anyway, it can vary. There are also remembering names and words for things. I, for example, cannot remember names, people's names at all. I haven't been able to for several years now. Just cannot. That part of my brain just does not work. But you can also have, most people have difficulty finding words, word finding, so you can get stuck in the middle of sentences when you're trying to think of a word. You can also lose track, lose the thread completely, and just lose where you were and have to stop and either let other people take over or say, remind me, what was I talking about? And you'll sometimes pick it up again like that. Sensory changes occur whereby, and all these changes are to do with processing data, gotta say. Basically your brain is a bloody massive computer chip, and if it doesn't function properly, you can't process everything nor process it as quickly as you could before. So sensory changes to do with the incoming sensory data, whether it be smell or touch or taste or sight or hearing, they're all affected in different ways in different people. I, for example, and it's very common, have issues, well, I have impaired hearing. And research has shown that around about 80% of people, when they get a diagnosis of dementia, also have hearing impairment, and most of them have done nothing about it. But actually research also shows that if you address the issues and find solutions where possible, like hearing aids or techniques, then you can slow down the deterioration of the brain disease and the effects of it, compared with if you don't deal with it. Oh God, edit that out. So when you're processing data coming in, it might be what you see, so where you're walking. People with dementia will often be looking down because they need to see where they're about to put their feet, because they can't adjust their gait quick enough to compensate for a change of level, or they might be unable to process quickly enough the difference between a dark and a light spot area. I once stumbled downstairs in a pub, not because I was drunk, I hasten to add, but because the steps were very poorly lit and the bottom two were actually in darkness, so I couldn't see where I was putting my feet, and I just miscalculated completely. Carpet patterns, especially on stairs, are incredibly unsettling, and you just have to hang onto a banister and take it one at a time, looking very closely down at your feet on the next step. Noise, the sounds coming in, you've got to process them, and if you're trying to do something or listen to something else or have a conversation at the same time, you've got to actually exclude the extraneous noises that come in. It might be a motorbike down the road, it might be an aeroplane, it might be someone cooking and clanking pans or cutlery or something, it might be hoovering in the house. that drives me mad. I cannot cope with it. So much noise that A, it's difficult to process it, B, it's difficult to exclude it from the thought process you're trying to have, and C, because you're I don't know the technical stuff here, but because you're unable to process that data so quickly or so well, it just sudden loud noises can have an enormously horrible effect upon your brain and on your mood. And I really hate loud noises. I'll give an example. I live in the countryside, fantastic, lovely, peaceful and so on, except on a Saturday, all across the 6 months of the summer, there's a clay pigeon shoot, and it's upwind, around about half a mile away. And when the wind is blowing from the west or southwest, as it has been recently, on a Saturday, the noise of those shots is so loud it feels as if they're only 50 yards away. And I can deal with it for a while, but then after a few hours, it just completely distorts my reality, upsets me. And in fact, last Saturday I went and got my noise cancelling headphones out to actually get rid of the noise, because and I still haven't recovered from it. Actually, it's really done me in. Reading can become a problem because you can't necessarily remember who the characters are from one page to another, or from one day to another. I'm alright on that still. My problem with reading is that I get bored with it. I used to read a lot, written lots of novels. Nowadays, although I can read and decode really well, after about 50 pages I get bored with it. I just can't see the point in going on with it, and that's down to my brain disease. I haven't a clue why, but that's what happens. Some people just stop being able to read and process words. Some people, and I can think of one person in particular, she is fantastic at typing language and writing, in the sense of creating the written word and poetry and stories and whatever else, very quickly on her computer or iPad with a proper keyboard. But she can no longer speak ad lib. So she's given loads of talks at conferences. Nowadays, she either gets someone else to read it for her, or she reads it from her iPad. She can't actually give a talk because she finds it so hard to find the words and the thoughts, and she gets sidetracked all the time. Loss of inhibition. We all have a mechanism whereby, to a greater or lesser extent, we control our instincts and our desires and our words and thoughts. So what comes out and what you see in me, or what the public sees, is a sort of sanitized version of all these different thoughts and things that are going on in the head. Well, people often with this brain disease lose the ability to control that, and that happened to me until I took a drug called Aricept. Its usual name now is something else, donepezil, and that caused the rest of my brain, the healthy part of my brain, to really work much better and much faster. It's just a chemical, which restored my ability to think before I actually opened my mouth. I know some people would say I probably don't know how to think hard enough before I open my mouth, but there we are. Sequencing.